Welcome to the Carl Jackson Show, your daily dose of objective truth in a world of confusion and lies. If you think you're growing poor under the Biden administration, you're right. we're going to talk about that. Guys, listen, I know what the left wants to do. They want you to focus on all things Trump. And actually, we will briefly talk about Alvin Bragg's case, only because I came across a podcast column or a podcast that was dictated into a column. And I just want to read you a brief snippet. Hugh Hewitt was on Salem Radio this morning, and he said it best. This is a show trial. Alvin Bragg has no jurisdiction whatsoever to bring a trial like this. You have the Judge Merchant, whose daughter is involved, who's a Democrat strategist or fundraiser. You have the judge himself, who, although he only gave an insignificant amount to Joe Biden's campaign and like some anti-Republican group, if you will, I think I heard as low as, $15-20 or something to that effect. It does show where he stands or where he, where his political ideologies are. And that's probably why, if you're a judge, you would give to organizations like that, because it's my understanding that if you're a judge, you're supposed to be nonpartisan, non-political. That is the goal when you're in a judgeship. So anyway, we will talk about that. Please subscribe to the podcast wherever you go to get your podcast: Apple, Google, Spotify, YouTube, and Rumble. Please like and share the podcast and comment. Comments on the podcast. If you would comment, we would appreciate it. We'll get to as many comments as we absolutely can. All things social media at the Carl Jackson Show. Guys, I decided I was going to do two podcasts in one, but I've decided to break them up. So we're going to do one now. We're going to do one later, because I do want to bring you some of the latest when it comes to Iran and Israel. And I'm saying Iran. I've been scolded on how to say it correctly. Iran and Israel, and I want to make sure that I share that information with you, because there's no telling where this will lead. But we can see that the world is on fire as a result of that. You have a bunch of crazy kids that are literally blocking bridgeways and so on, et cetera. Right here in the United States of America, there's been a stabbing of a preacher, a pastor, if you will, a bishop inside of Australia. All of that news we're going to bring you later. I'm going to tie it all together, because it is part of Biden's foreign policy. The closer he gets to, honestly, Biden has created a world that hates Jews. I mean, I know they were there. I know that Biden didn't create anti-Semites. I get all of that. But essentially, with his policies, America was once that beacon on a hill, that shining light on a hill. We are no longer that, particularly with this man in charge. And so it's having its effects. And Biden's foreign policy is an absolute disaster. I think it's play it by ear. I think it's wait to make sure we get reelected. I think it's catering to his anti-Jewish base, his pro-Hamas base, and it is lighting the world on fire. This man should be nowhere near the White House. He shouldn't be running for reelection, but he is. But for the sake of this, I want to just focus on a couple of things. I do want to talk about the economy, and I just don't want to lose sight on all of the issues that are going to be touching everyday Americans in everyday life, because what the left would like you to do is just pay attention to the lawfare that's going on against former President Trump, the persecutions, and they want you to forget about how Joe Biden is destroying your ability to be able to eat, to be able to feed your family, to be able to purchase a car if need be, or a roof over your head if need be, pay rent if need be. Inflation is absolutely insane. And I want to talk about that. And I want to talk about it on a personal level. I came into a article from ABMAC, U.S. Joe Biden on the economy. I don't feel your pain. It was actually written by economist Stephen Moore. And I want to get into just some of the major points inside of that column. Here's what I'll do before, though, if you don't mind. I do want to share this. Let me share this about Alvin Bragg. And I didn't even want to talk about this. I wasn't even going to talk about this, but I want you to understand, because someone just wrote it so well. It's on chroniclesmagazine.org. And so it's a gentleman by the name of Adam Mill. So let me just cite what he has to say. He says, until today, it had been over 200 years since the state of New York held a witch trial. Jane Nault Caniff, defended herself against charges that she was a witch in a 1816 New York court. Miss Caniff, however, at least knew what quote unquote crime she was charged with having committed. She survived the process with an acquittal. Alvin Bragg, he says, in contrast to Caniff's prosecutors, is taking Donald Trump to trial while accusing him of covering up a crime he has not specified. Guys, this is the only reason I want to bring this to your attention. If some of you are confused, if you're not, if you think that this trial is legitimate, I know people are like, hey, hush money payment, that's the pejorative to make it sound juicy instead of saying non-disclosure agreement. I don't know if Donald Trump slept with that chick or not. I forget her real name, but you know her porn name. It's out there. So I don't know whether or not he slept with this woman or not. What I do know is that there was some type of non-disclosure agreement. They're calling that hush money payment. Now, non-disclosure agreements occur every day, all day when it comes to business, when it comes to settlements. I don't know if this lady threatened to say something. If it was true, at one point she denied having an affair with Trump. So I don't know what's true, but apparently while Trump, I think it was while he was running for president, the presidency, his former attorney, Michael Cohen, that now goes on one of these left-wing networks to just bash him because I assume he's getting paid for it after he's gotten out of jail. Or out of prison, rather. I'm assuming at some point in time, they said, listen, I'm in the middle of a campaign. It's not worth the headache dealing with this woman. Let's just go ahead and pay her. And it's a, non-disclosure agreement, right? Whatever. That happens all the time. I'm not talking about the morality of the issue. If it's true, obviously it's disgusting. But again, he's denied it. She's denied it. I don't know what's true. Nonetheless, just as far as legalese is concerned, is it a county prosecutor? I believe Alvin Bragg is bringing a federal charge. He should not be able to do it. I mean, if he's I believe he's a county. I believe he's county because Letitia James is the AG of New York. All right. The article goes on to say Bragg's indictment repeatedly alleges that Trump made a false business entry to commit another crime and aid and conceal the commission thereof. But the problem is, what was the first crime? I mean, the columnist writes, what crime? The indictment doesn't say. Was it witchcraft? Obviously, he says facetiously, as I demonstrate below. I don't think we can rule it out. The New York hush money case is not complicated. To call it complicated suggests the indictment makes sense if you invest enough time and effort into reading through the documents. He says the indictment is nonsensical and unconstitutional on its face. Trump should not have to wait until trial to discover what law he's accused of having broken. So I want you to imagine that. Let's say that you had gotten arrested, but never charged with a crime. Let's say if you were going in front of a jury of your peers or even a bench trial, which means a judge would listen, not a jury. But you didn't know what crime you were facing. And you're sitting there saying, wait a minute, man, I'm having to pay for an attorney. Maybe I served a day or so in jail or whatever until I was bonded out. And you guys still haven't told me what I'm accused of. That's what's happening in New York. Not only do they not have the jurisdiction because it's not a federal courtroom to bring this case, but they haven't even still to this day told Trump what he's being charged with. All right, so corporate media ignores this obvious weakness in the case by salaciously harping on Donald Trump's alleged affair with Stormy Daniels. Such an affair, if it happened, is not illegal and is not the crime with which Trump is charged. They hint darkly at a campaign finance violation. All right, so it's not the affair itself. If it happened, again, Trump has not been charged with violating any campaign finance laws in this case. They speak solemnly about a hush money agreement used to hide the affair. Again, not illegal and not charged. So you have major headlines that are talking about a hush money payment, and yet it's not illegal, and that isn't what he's being charged for. In the accompanying statement of facts, quote unquote, Bragg accused Trump of hiding damaging information from the voting public during the 2016 presidential election. If true, that is also not a if true, that is also not a crime, nor has Trump been charged with hiding damaging information. Bragg also alleged Trump, quote, violated election laws, quote unquote. Which laws? According to whom? Bragg does not say, and Trump has not been charged by Bragg or anyone else with violating election laws. So you understand why people say that this case has absolutely no merit. You've had attorneys on both sides of the aisle and everywhere in between say that this case should be thrown out. It's just a complete and utter joke. I was in an X space yesterday where people were talking about the merits of this case. And then I have to go back to this, and you have to realize, remember, this isn't about the rule of law. This is lawfare. As Hugh Hewitt said, this is about embarrassing Donald Trump. But I think it's more than that. It isn't. It's about embarrassing Trump. All right. It's about destroying him leading up to the election. I do believe sincerely that this is election interference. This is part of the Democrats' campaign against Trump. You look at Joe Biden that can barely spew out an entire sentence, and you understand that there's no way that that guy on his own can defeat a Donald Trump. It just cannot happen. So it is all hands on deck. And all of these people, they may not have coordinated. They may not have called each other, but they know the deal. They're helping out the Democrat Party. They're building their own brand, and they're hoping that one day they'll be rewarded for it. Nothing more than that. It could be, the article goes on, that Trump will be charged something in keeping with any of these theories or something new. But since the judge is allowing the prosecution to ambush Trump, we could be surprised by any charge. We could be surprised by any charge they announce, even witchcraft, he says. Defendants other than Trump are normally entitled to the Sixth Amendment guarantee, quote, to be informed or of the nature and cause of the accusation, close quote, before a criminal trial can be held to imprison him. So again, he should know what crime he's accused of covering up before showing up to trial. If Bragg fails to prove any element of the charges, Donald Trump should be found not guilty as a matter of law. Now, the operative word in that sentence is should be. He's in New York. I'm not sure that I don't believe that you can find an honest juror. I know Clay and Buck, he sent out a tweet, I believe the last night, if I'm not mistaken, which basically said, and I'm paraphrasing on his X account, listen, if you're a Trump supporter, one of the most patriotic things you could do is figure out a way to get on this jury, and all you need is one juror to say, no, this isn't going to fly. The problem is you're dealing with the left, and I do believe the left will end up checking people's voting status, so on, et cetera. This is, I think this is a frustrating thing. All of us can talk about what should be done, but will it be done? And I'm simply not convinced of it. All right, if Bragg fails to prove any element of the charges, Trump should be found not guilty as a matter of law. If Donald Trump proves he never committed the underlying crime, Bragg says he covered up, Trump wins. But how can Trump do that? How can you even, when it remains a closely guarded secret on the day of trial? How can you even bring forth a defense when there is no charge? Guys, this is just a complete and utter scam. It's my opinion that Alvin Bragg should lose his law license and should never be able to practice again. You don't do this. I don't care if you don't like Donald Trump. You don't destroy the justice system for political advantage. You don't do it. And I understand it happens, but this is unprecedented. This has never happened before. We won't know what Trump supposedly, going back to the article, what Trump supposedly tried to cover up until the jury instructions. Bragg can wait until the case is over before picking a crime for his cover-up charges. That is unbelievable. The jury selection process began yesterday. As you guys know, no jurors, I'm sure you heard, no jurors were selected. The trial will hamper Trump's campaigning for president over the next 6 to 8 weeks, at which point he will simply have to pivot to his other legal matters. And the goal of the left is to keep him busy in these courtrooms so he doesn't have the chance to campaign. That's why you see Trump going out and doing all these rallies. He can do them over the weekend. and he should continue to. Both Bragg and the presiding judge have assured the public that politics and the election play no part in this impartial administration of justice. But he says that's some powerful witchcraft itself. And now you heard yesterday that the judge will not allow Trump to go to his son Barron's graduation. One of the days in which he has to appear at court is the day of his son's graduation. And I agree with Pierce Morgan, which is probably a rarity, but I heard him say that Trump should go. I totally agree with that. That would be my same sentiment. I mean, no, you're running for president. What are they going to do? Throw you in jail, and then you're going to get tons more people, sending money towards you, and tons more people sympathetic to your cause. Parents who are going to their sons or their daughter's graduation will be much more sympathetic to former President Trump. I'd go. I'd risk it. I'd risk it, especially with your brand. You'll be in and out in no time. I would certainly risk it. So anyway, just an interesting take. That was at chroniclesmagazine.org. Okay, so let me shift. Before I do, I want to talk to you about, and if you guys see me shifting around, I just got to be real with you. So you got this beautiful new desk, and actually it's just like a workbench type desk at Sam's, believe it or not, that works well for podcasting. But I got to stand up real quick for those of you that are watching on Rumble and YouTube. Gabe knows the backstory. This stool, so because the table is so much taller than the one that I used to sit behind this little tiny desk. So this table is nicer. It's roomier. Allows me to fit all my crud, a couple of computer screens in front of me, my articles right in the middle. Not to mention you got the mic and the setup for that, all that kind of stuff. But I'm sitting on this old wooden stool that I have, and let me tell you, it hurts like the dickens. It is not comfortable whatsoever. Now, since I've shared all that personal stuff with you, let me share something else. I want to talk to you about wealth protection research. At the very heart of our democracy lies a principle that we all hold sacred, and that is free speech. It's the cornerstone that supports every freedom that we cherish. Yet in today's digital age, discussions about our wealth, our rights, and our future are being silenced or overshadowed in mainstream narratives, leaving many feeling voiceless in conversations crucial to our financial independence and security. This is where wealth protection research steps in, armed with a passion that's never been more critical. Wealth Protection Research is not a financial advisory firm. They are defenders of free speech, committed to giving a voice to the silence. Wealth Protection Research tirelessly seeks out financial experts. These are the voices that challenge prevailing narratives, especially as we navigate the uncertainties of the 2024 election. Wealth Protection Research has created a 2024 Election Wealth Protection Report. This free report highlights the 3 best ideas for protecting and growing your money heading into the 2024 election, and God knows we all need it. It contains ideas the mainstream media won't touch, and listeners can get it completely free. All you have to do is text the word IDEAS, IDEAS, to 76626 to claim your free copy. If you believe in the sanctity of free speech and the importance of financial freedom, then act now. Text IDEAS, IDEAS, to 76626 to claim your free copy of this 2024 Election Protection Report. It's time to widen the scope of what we're told, to hear the ideas the establishment does not think you can handle, and to take control of our financial destinies. Text IDEAS to 76626 to claim your free copy. Again, text the word IDEAS, IDEAS, to 76626 to claim your free copy. That is Wealth Protection Research. All right. Having said that, now I think this is the perfect way to segue into what we're going into, and that is how Biden is making you poor. If you think you're feeling poor, it's because you are. So I'm here to confirm it to you for you today. In hopes that maybe you'll call your congressmen or senators. Hopefully you'll prepare, take advantage of this wealth protection research report, the 2024 Election Wealth Protection Report. Take advantage of that. Remember, text IDEAS, IDEAS, to 76626. All right, but I want to talk about Biden and the economy. and how Biden doesn't care about your pain. We'll get into that. So first, let's do this. Let's go ahead and roll the video. This is Karine Jean-Pierre. Karine Jean-Pierre apparently does not care or does not understand that gas prices affect everyday Americans. So here's what she had to say about it. Let's go ahead and roll the video. Por favor, Gabe.
That's about gas prices. They've been going up over the last month, 20 cents a gallon. Is the president considering any new actions like releasing more oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve?
So I don't have any new actions to read out. I will note that gas prices remain well below their peak back in 2022. I think that's important. And the average gas price right now is cheaper than this time last year. And that's because of what this president has been doing over the last 3 years, including the SPR. Look, let's not forget, jobs are up, wages are up, clean energy manufacturing is up. All of these things are incredibly important because of this president's historic investment that he has made. But I think it's important to note that it remains well below the 2022 peak, pardon.
But it's only 3 cents lower than a year ago. It's up 52% from when President Biden came into office. And he then talk about changes in policy to encourage future investment in oil and gas industry.
So look, the president's committed to lowering cost. He is. That is something that you see at the center of every economic policy. When you hear him giving remarks, he's talking about lowering costs. He understands how the American people are still being squeezed. And so the reason that it remains below 2022, the gas prices, as you're asking me, is because of the historic investment that this president has made. So of course, we're going to continue to monitor and do everything that we can to answer those questions by the American people. What else can we do to lower cost? But it is important that it is cheaper. It is cheaper to get gas than it was a year ago, and that's because of what this president has been doing, because of historic investment that he's taken.
You notice what she did. She compared gas prices to a year ago. Who was in charge a year ago? It's Joe Biden. I mean, it's Joe Biden. Frankly, and I don't know why. I maybe this escaped me. Maybe just because I haven't thought of it in a while. But has it occurred to you? And again, I'll get into another podcast with this, totally separate, because I want to deal with the Iran, Israel, and the stabbing of the bishop in Australia. All of these nut jobs that are literally blocking roads. Who, by the way, I think you should be immediately arrested, and I think that should be a felony if you're doing that. You should not be. Your rights should never infringe on other people's rights. So I'm going to do a totally separate podcast with that. We'll have it out either tonight or tomorrow morning, first thing. So stay tuned for that. There's just other information that I'd like to collect, and for the sake of time, we'll share that at another date. But I am getting that together because I really want to speak on that. But one of the things you have to consider when it comes to Iran, and part of Joe Biden's appeasement with Iran, part of Joe Biden's appeasement with the mullahs of Iran, not the Iranian people, but with the mullahs of Iran, is he cannot allow gas prices to skyrocket even further than they already have, because that will be an automatic turnoff, even for people that may absolutely hate Trump's guts. They'll look at Biden and say, well, listen, I hate Trump's guts. I'm not going to vote for Donald Trump, but I'm certainly not going to vote for this mess. So they may just sit it out. And that's what Biden has to be concerned about. Michael Moore, even the left-wing nut job filmmaker, said just as much the same, that he doesn't believe that lefties are going to come out and vote for Trump. But if Biden stays in the race, he believes that a lot of people are going to stay home. And I do believe he's correct in that. We'll just have to wait and see. I'm not going to predict that a Trump victory or anything like that. I'm not going to predict the landslide. I don't even believe that's possible in today's time and era. But I want you to understand what Jean-Pierre just said and how she simply doesn't care. Not only is she uncaring, she's a complete and utter jerk about it. And she thinks that you're as dumb as she is. And I don't say that to be mean, but that lady is not bright. How do you need a binder to answer that question? That makes no sense to me whatsoever. So, so if you've got this feeling, if you're wondering whether or not you're growing poor under Biden or under Biden inflation, yeah, you're right. You are. If you think you're growing poorer, you are. All right. Now, so here's a summary. This was from AMAC, but it was written by Stephen Moore. economist Stephen Moore. Here's a summary. He talks about in 1992, some of you guys may or may not be old enough to remember this, but Democratic, and I wasn't really paying attention. Actually, I wasn't paying attention to politics then, but I know what he's talking about because I do remember it being talked about and mentioned oftentimes because I would listen to talk radio back in the day even. In 1992, Democratic presidential nominee Bill Clinton famously answered a voter question about how the national debt affected him personally. Clinton's response was often paraphrased as, quote unquote, "I feel your pain." Whether Bill was for once being sincere, whether Bill was for once being sincere or not, his words resonated. All right, that sounds a little. Whether Bill was for once being sincere or not, his words resonated. Anyway, that's what the column says. And honestly, does anyone honestly believe that Joe Biden can feel your pain? See, Bill Clinton had a gift. I'm not convinced that he could feel your pain, but he obviously had a political gift. For those of you that may be too young to remember, the guy was an excellent communicator when it came to the game of politics. Joe Biden is not that. Obviously, we saw that with Barack Obama, but I would argue that Bill Clinton was better than Barack Obama. Barack Obama could give good speeches that he would read off. I think he was good at trying to explain things at times, but he would often fumble, but at least he kind of knew what he was saying. Bill Clinton was a political beast, and every once in a while, people like that will rise up. He was a disgusting human being, but a political, and still is, but a political beast. All right. He knew how to triangulate. He was willing to do so. Joe Biden is not, because his team, his administration is filled with a bunch of left-wing radicals, and he's fully incompetent, and he always has been. So does anyone honestly believe that Joe Biden could feel your financial pain? Of course he can. Of course he can. The guy has been in politics think of this, for a half century. So you've been paying his salary. He's been in the DC swamp. He's been out of touch with reality. These guys go to Washington DC, and they're constantly told how brilliant they are. I mean, they go there and they get wealthy. The Bidens have. They've done it being more corrupt. They didn't even do a lot of it with as far as investing is concerned. You know what I mean? A lot of theirs was just straight up corruption on Joe Biden's part. Joe Biden was the big guy. But this guy can't honestly. He's out of stuff. He's out of touch with real Americans. He can't honestly feel your pain. All right. So Joe Biden's message for voters today is stop complaining, and that's what Karine Jean-Pierre basically said. Stop complaining. Things are great, and you're too dumb to know any better. That's the message. These people are out of touch. They're elites. This is what Gail Collins of the New York Times had to say. And I quote, when speaking of the economy, and again, you're going to have news media taking you this direction, that direction. Here's what we're about here: political, spiritual, and financial freedom. Ultimately, those are the things that are going to save America: political, spiritual, and financial freedom. All right. Those are the things that are going to save or restore America. But here's what Gail Collins, the elitist at New York Times, here's what she had to say. She said, and I quote, "I know politicians aren't supposed to lecture people about how great their lives are, but it's weird that the nation doesn't seem more conscious of how well things are going. Prices have generally stabilized or begun to drop." Gabe, let me ask you, if you're in the listening audience. Sometimes Gabe is in the listening audience. Sometimes he's not. But Gabe, if you're in the listening audience, do you feel like things are going better financially in the economy? You would consider yourself a blue collar worker, would you not? All right. So apparently Gabe and me as well, I guess we're too dumb to understand because neither one of us feel like the economy is going well. And the truth of the matter is, neither do 66% of Americans. Here's what Biden and Gail Collins want you to live with. All right. So Stephen Moore writes this out. You're just going to have to learn to live with 20% higher prices. Think about that. In just a span of a few years, you have prices that have risen 20%. $1 trillion deficits that the Biden administration will try to attribute to Donald Trump, which is just absolutely insane since the guy isn't in office. Declining purchasing power. All right, so you have 20% higher prices. You have people making more money, but they have less purchasing power because the cost of living or their wages aren't keeping up with the rise of inflation. And you have morons like those that exist in California, right? That will say, hey, $20 minimum wage, $25, whatever it is in California. And you have business owners that can't afford it because most Americans can't do math and don't understand how to run a business. And okay, so major corporations can take that hit, the those that are not franchises, right? So major corporations could take the hit, but the mom and pop shop, and guys, that does include a McDonald's or a Burger King. You guys might not realize, a Chick-fil-A. You guys may or may not realize, In-N-Out Burger, whatever is out there, you may or may not realize that a lot of these places, fast food places in particular, are franchise places. So Gavin Newsom was able to avoid, did you guys know this? He was able to avoid with his businesses a $20 minimum wage simply because he's not one of these major corporations. So he could keep his employees at whatever, $10, $12, $15 an hour, and then they make the rest of the money off of tips, but not so for fast food chains. So he gave his business or his style of businesses an advantage. And he hooked up his homie with Panera Bread, from Panera Bread, who told him, hey man, I can't afford this stuff, and I'm donating to your campaign. This is the left. This is who they are. This is who they are. So now, 20% higher prices in just a span of a few years. Your wages haven't gone up that much. My wages haven't gone up that much. Nobody wants to pay that. Schools don't teach anymore. We have more crime on the streets. We've got this open border. Listen to all this. 20% higher prices. $1 trillion deficits, which means your dollar is going down even further because the more money that Washington spends, the less your dollar is worth. So you have no declining purchase power. I'm just reiterating. Schools that don't teach anything but cultural Marxism and that little boys and girls can be opposite sex, which is absolute nonsense. You've got rising crime on the streets because you got a lot of these major cities run by Democrats that won't enforce crime, emboldening criminals. You've got an open border with more crime, even from criminals and illegal aliens that continue to come in. And you got $4 per gallon gas. And what Jean Pierre is saying, KGP, is basically get used to it. Things are going swell. All right, you're just too stupid to realize it. So if you're in the DC bubble, or if you're chilling in college, in a college faculty lounge, where you have to think about these places, money always flows, right? These people are so out of touch with real everyday Americans because we have to send our money to these places, particularly when it comes to Washington, D.C. It's tax day via taxes, so on, etc. They always see money. They always get income, right? That's where our money flows. A lot of people make great money there. That's why the surrounding areas are the richest amongst in the entire country. And so those people can spend lavishly because they're in that DC bubble. That isn't true for you and I, or colleges, because you have these student loans, which are going to go even higher now that people realize, oh my God, I can go to college, I can go get a degree like international basket weaving and social justice, from Austria or whatever, or in Austria, you know what I'm saying? I can do all of that, and they're going to pay for it. The government will pay for it. So what does that mean? Colleges know they're going to get more useful idiots that are going to come in and pay their prices so they can raise those prices. And eventually, guess who's going to pay off everything? You are. Those of you that chose not to go to college because you couldn't afford it. You're going to pay for it. And so the colleges know that, so they're going to get rich. They never hurt. In a down economy, some of the places that never hurt are colleges and universities, because people go back to school. Oh my God, the economy is bad. Let me go to school. Government will pay for it. I can get a loan, I can get a grant, so on, etc. But meanwhile, the gap between the ruling class and blue collar employees has gotten even larger. Even former President Barack Obama's senior advisor, David Axelrod, warned President Biden that in an economy that is leaving so many Americans behind, he says that it drives him crazy. And he says it literally, quote, "It drives me crazy when he does that," Axelrod said. And that is hyping the economy. He told him to stop hyping the economy when people want to want their president to feel their pain. Biden is incapable of doing it. And frankly, I think he'd be incapable even if he didn't have dementia. All right. So he's just out of touch with mainstream America. There's no doubt about it. You got nearly 2 out of 3. That's where I came up with the 66% of Americans that are saying that things aren't going well for their personal financial situation. So the don't worry, be happy mantra is simply not going to work. Let me give you a few more stats. All right. The vast majority of Americans have seen wages and salaries lag behind inflation for more than 3 years. So real wages are down almost 4% under Biden because of inflation. Inflation is rising. So even if your wages are rising, it's not keeping up. Your pay raise isn't keeping up with the rate of inflation. And matter of fact, more of you are going to end up being unemployed once these minimum wage hikes start going up around the country. The inflation rate appeared last year to be falling to about 3%, but now it's trending back upwards to 5% on an annual basis. All right. So how are you going to keep up with, do you get a 5% raise per year just to keep up with inflation? No. I mean, this is insane. There are lots of ways of measuring the decline. Stephen Moore writes in Real Take-Home Pay for Middle-Class Families, but the measure is about $2,500 a decline in purchasing power. So basically, I believe that's on an annual basis as far as the job market is concerned, which is stronger under Biden, and that is only because you still have people returning to work after COVID. So there are more job openings, but even that is starting to show a crack because part-time employment is surging and full-time jobs have been negative for the last 2 months. So even the quality of jobs is dropping. So hourly wages are rising even as weekly pay is falling. So think about that. Hourly wages are rising. Weekly pay is falling. You know what's happening? People are just saying, all right, I can't afford these employees, or I'm going to raise your pay, but I can't. You're going to have to work fewer hours. That's what's happening in Biden's America. So if you feel poor, you are. All right. Biden's strategy is to blame Trump. He says, my predecessor, quote unquote, for the weakening economy, a big stretch given that Stephen Moore writes that Trump was already pulling the economy out of the COVID-19 recession 6 months before Biden occupied the White House. Inflation was at 1.7% when Trump left office. Then 18 months and $4 trillion of debt later, the consumer price index had soared to 9.1%. So you go from 1.7% inflation, which is basically non-existent, to 9.1%, which is, oh, God, have mercy on my soul. If this is morning in America, we're in deep doo-doo. I mean, those are just the facts. I'll bring you one more story that I want to share as far as car insurance is concerned, something that you may not be thinking of, but my family was hit with that recently, and I want to share exactly what's happening because I was sitting there thinking, man, it's just time to change companies. Now, it's not just happening to me. I'll share that with you after this quick mention of MyPillow.com. So you might have heard that Mike Lindell and MyPillow no longer have the support of the big box stores or the shopping channels that they used to. These companies have gone woke and they've been part of this cancel culture. So they want to pass, MyPillow does, and Mike Lindell, the savings directly on to you. Here's how they'll do that. They're offering a $25 extravaganza. All right. So when Mike started MyPillow, it was just a one product company. With the help of his dedicated employees, they now have hundreds of products. Some of you may not even know about. So to get the word out, I want to invite my listeners to check out their $25 extravaganza. They've got 2-pack multi-use My Pillows, just $25. My Pillow sandals are just $25. Their 6-pack towel sets are just $25. Brand new 4-pack dish towels, they're just $25. For the first time ever, the premium My Pillows with all the new Giza fabric, those are just $25. Orders over $75 will receive free shipping as well. So this amazing offer won't last long. All you have to do is go to mypillow.com, use the promo code Carl, or call 800-858-0263. Again, that number is 800-858-0263. Don't forget to use a promo code Carl. I spell it C-A-R-L. I don't spell it like the Marxists. Or go to mypillow.com, click on that radio podcast square, and enter my name, Carl. All right? Certainly appreciate that. All right, real quick, and then we'll close out for this podcast. Breaking, Alvin Bragg asked Judge Merchant to hold Trump in contempt over 3 gag order violations. So this, I mean, again, this is a show trial. I think Hugh Hewitt said it best. This is a show trial. So everybody else, Michael Cohen, can go on news outlets and so on, et cetera. Everyone can bash Trump. But he can't speak out against he can't speak out against a fake trial, a show trial, a witch hunt, which that he stated, and frankly it is. Frankly, it is, and everybody knows it. How are you taking a man to jail when there are no charges, or taking him to trial when there are no charges? That is insane. And honestly, if you're somebody that supports that just because you hate Donald Trump, maybe you're the person that should be hated because you're a disgusting, despicable human being. And I really feel that way, man. I'm tired of. Well, Carl, you're a Christian. You should no. I'm sorry, you're wrong. I love everybody. I don't like everybody. I mean, it's as simple as that. And I particularly don't like people that grow up in the greatest country that God has ever given man, and they flush it down the tubes based upon their own selfishness and their own heart's desires, which are evil. I'm just tired of it, man. I'm not going to sit here and play nice, and I'm tired of it, man. These people are destroying the freaking country. They don't understand the blessings. Or the blessing that it is to be an American. All right, now, real quick too, let me share this. I've got some merchandise out. I've got a T-shirt out. Love guns, hate tyranny. Also, skin ain't sin. I'll be rocking those in the future, so you'll get to see them. They are available at Carl Jackson Merch. So that is Carl Jackson Merch, MERCH.itemorder.com, working with a fabulous company that are helping me get these out. So D Designs. So I appreciate D Designs. So go to carljacksonmerch.item.order.com. You can take a look at the t-shirts there. We've just started with a couple. So Love Guns, Hate Tyranny is out. Skin Ain't Sin is out. There's another t-shirt there, but it does not have the right picture on it. We'll get that corrected. It's Promise. It's basically God's rainbow, and it just says the word promise. If you want to wear a nice looking t-shirt and stir up controversy, you will do that. But these other ones are meant to make a political point without being so in your face and being a little more fashionable. I think that's what I'm bringing to the table with that. So carljacksonmerch.itemorder.com. So check that out. All right. Last thing that I want to bring to your attention, bull favor, is this. All right, why car insurance costs are skyrocketing and leading to higher inflation. See, these are other ways in which the Biden economy is making you broke. And you may not have even thought about this. Maybe you've experienced it. I did, certainly recently. My household did. Skyrocketing auto insurance costs helped contribute to inflation accelerating at a faster than expected pace in March. On a monthly basis, car insurance prices as part of the Consumer Price Index rose by an adjusted 2.7%, while the year-over-year increased by 22.2%. This according to data, and that sounds about, honestly, mine went up even higher than that. The rise in insurance costs is in addition to historically high prices for new and used vehicles since the coronavirus pandemic, but it's since the lockdowns, as well as rising costs to repair vehicles. All right. So again, skyrocketing auto insurance costs help contribute to the inflation. You got new and used vehicles that are more expensive on a monthly basis. Car insurance prices as part of the Consumer Price Index rose by an adjusted 2.7%, while the year over year again increased by 22.2%. And you don't think Joe Biden wants to get you out of fossil fuel cars, do you? You just have to wonder. All the shipping crisis. Remember during the lockdowns, Pete Buttigieg couldn't get anything together, old Pete Booty. And you just have to wonder, yeah, I know he's incompetent, but you do have to wonder how much is incompetence and how much is just sheer intention and straight up evil. Oh, man, there's so many more headlines to get to. It's unbelievable. I just simply won't be able to do it in this podcast. Again, we will be either recording another podcast tonight that you can look forward to. Again, please check me out on social media, all things social media at The Carl Jackson Show is where you can go to find me on all things social media, X, Instagram, Facebook, True Social Getter, wherever I am on social media. You can find me there. I just want to make sure real quick. I know this is a podcast, and so you'll hear it later, but Lord willing, you'll hear it the same day. So I do like to check in case there's any breaking news. I at least like to get it out there. And then in the event in the event that something happens. Trump trial day 2. At least 50 potential jurors excused from the first pool. You have this court case too. I'll get into as well in the next couple of days. The Supreme Court is going to weigh in on charges of the J6 cases. Will it help Trump? Very interesting take. So we'll get into that as well as an article. I'll combine that with an article that Senator Marco Rubio wrote for the Federalist. Elites love the deep state because they loathe the American people. So we'll be talking about that and more coming up in some upcoming podcasts. So it's going to be busy. Everybody. So brace yourself. Jury selection continues in Trump trial. Hogan confident ticket splitters will break Dem hold on Maryland Senate. That's a senator, or this guy that is running for Senate in Maryland. He's basically a rhino, but they figure he'll be better than a Democrat. SCOTUS weighs obstruction charge against hundreds of J6 defendants. Johnson plans separate House votes on the Ukraine. Oh, yeah. You know what? Call on this. I know there's some people out there that are frustrated with the conservative wing of the party. I don't care. I'm sorry. I do believe that when it comes to Ukraine and Israel, those need to be separate bills. The Congress needs to make the case of why we're fighting in Ukraine. They also need to make the case of why Israel. Those should be separate bills. I'm okay with them making the case, but Israel, per our agreement with them, they're the only democracy, if you will, in the Middle East. And so our agreement with Israel is we're going to sell you weapons, but you have to buy all of your weapons from us. All right. So it's a relationship where it's a two-way street. All right, so just keep that in mind. Hundreds wreak havoc in New York City, disrupt traffic. We'll get into that later. Protest shuts down Golden Gate Bridge. All of these people should be in jail. I think that should be an automatic felony when they do that, and to block traffic. Hundreds take over downtown Chicago, clash with police. NPR, did you guys hear about this? Just real quick. So NPR suspends that veteran editor as it grapples with his public criticism. Just real quick, let me get his name right. So basically, the guy said, listen, in NPR, Yuri Berliner is basically just admitted, and he's a liberal himself, but admitted, like, man, these people are not, they are completely biased. They're completely left-wingers. They decided not to report on stuff because it was not advantageous to the Biden administration. All right. And I'm sorry, that's public radio. So it needs to go bye-bye. I'm so sick and tired of Republicans saying they're going to get rid of it, and not doing it. It needs to go bye-bye, plain and simple. Plenty of other avenues where people can listen to radio, podcasts, so on, etc. All right, guys, I appreciate you tuning in to this edition of the Carl Jackson Show podcast. Until next time, do not grow weary doing good. God bless you.